All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to our first peer-to-peer hangout of 2016. Happy New Year, everybody. I know I am looking forward to 2016 being exciting and even better than 2015. So I'm Julian Chevalier, and I am one of the co-chairs of the peer-to-peer hangout working group that's part of the NAEA Museum Education Division. So excited to have everybody back, and we're going to kick off the new year with an exciting preview of what's to come in the pre-conference. For those who are new to NAEA or have never gone to pre-conference, every year NAEA has a giant national conference, and Museum Education Division specifically has a pre-conference. And it's a great time to confab with your peers and really be in a room with 300 other people who know exactly what your vocabulary is. Gesundheit, Emily.
Sorry about that. Excuse me.
That's okay. And you know, brainstorm and really hash out the details and the big ideas and all the nitty-gritty. So it's a lot of fun, and some of us are able to go, some of us are not. So this is an opportunity for us to have a preview. If you are able to go, really encourage you to go if you're on the fence. And if the budget doesn't allow you to attend this year, then at least this gives you a preview and some things that you could potentially delve into on your own. Just a few kind of housekeeping things before we get going. Is that folks have a Q&A option. So everybody, once you mouse over your Google Hangout, on the left side you should have a little Q&A bubble. It's kind of like a talk bubble. And if you click on that, you should see something on the right side of your screen where you see the questions come up. And so at the bottom you can type a question. Everybody will be able to see that. I'll be monitoring the questions, and when I see one that seems specifically apropos, I'll bug the speakers and we'll jump in and make sure it gets answered. Another great thing about Q&A is that if somebody asks a question that you're really interested in, you can do like kind of a like or a +1, and that question will rise to the top. So I think that's all I need to say for now. Another reminder is that our Hangouts are monthly on the second Wednesday of every month at this time. We do take the summers off, but right now I'm going to turn things over to the fearless leader of the Museum Education Division of NAEA, Emily Holtrop.
Hi, everybody. As Julian said, I'm Emily Holtrop. I'm the director of the Museum Education Division, and my day job is I'm also the director of learning and interpretation at the Cincinnati Art Museum. And as Julian mentioned, we're going to do a little, as I was referring to it, as Museum Education Division 101, and talk about what's happening in the division and how you can get involved. And Michelle and I are going to kind of tag team and talk about a few different things. We're pulling up a presentation right now, but while that's happening, I'm going to let Michelle introduce herself as well.
Hello, everyone. I'm Michelle Grohe, and I'm the Museum Education Director-elect. So my role for the next 2 years is primarily planning the pre-conference that happens for our division, and my day job is the Assistant Curator of Education and School Programs here at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. It's a slight title shift, so it still takes me a while to remember how to say it. So.
And that's the thing about museum education. I don't think any of us have short titles. So we're just waiting a second while we pull up the PowerPoint presentation. And when Michelle and I were talking about this the other day, we were talking about like how did we get both of us get both involved in NAEA, and you know my route is pretty easy to talk about. I started at the Cincinnati Art Museum over 13 years ago, and maybe the second day that I was at the museum, they said, oh, and by the way, you go to NAEA every year as part of your job. So my first conference was the 2003 convention in Minneapolis, and have been attending every year since. I didn't attend the pre-conference the first year because I didn't know about it, but have been attending the pre-conference since then, and have found it as just a really great opportunity to meet new people, get engaged with the community, and you know, create some really nice lifelong friendships of people who get it, if you know what I mean. So yeah, it's basically I was told this is a perk of your job and you're going. So Michelle, do you want to go ahead and say how you got started?
Sure. it takes a second to remember how that all began, but I first started going to NAEA, I think, in 2005. The Gardner was the first museum that also required me to go to conferences, just as a requirement or a mandate, as a way of sharing our research that we do on a regular basis. And then it quickly became, like you were saying, Emily, a great way to network, connect with others, learn more about what other museums are doing, and share and exchange ideas. And Emily and I both served on the development committee as regional representatives for a while before we both shifted. So we can talk more about that as we go through what the leadership does as well.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And we're ready for the presentation if the presentation's ready for us. Oh, there we go.
There it is.
If you want to advance to the next slide, please. I don't know if they heard me.
Yep.
There we go. I just wanted to give you a little bit of information about what NAEA Mission is. As the division director, I am on the board of trustees, or on the board for NAEA. So I am there with colleagues from the rest of the association and really working on strategic planning and really living our mission. So for those of you that weren't aware, the NAEA Mission is the National Art Education Association advances visual arts education to fulfill human potential and promote global understanding. So it's a really broad mission, and I think it really fits in with the work that museum educators are doing on a daily basis. So next slide. And that's us. So you can have some faces that go with names. When you get emails from either Michelle or I, you know who is sending it. And I wanted to let you know that this presentation is going to be available on the NAEA Museum Education website so that you can go and get all the emails. I've included our emails. Also, I've included our Twitter handles. We're both really active on Twitter, and we love talking about museum education on Twitter. So I encourage you to tweet us. And yeah, next slide. So we have the development committee of the division is made up of our regional representatives and our rep-elects. So your regional representatives who will be serving who have been serving this year and will serve next year while I'm the division director are Barbara Bassett for the Eastern region. She's at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. Our Southeastern region is Mari Robles, who's at the Perez Art Museum in Miami. Amy Kirschke represents the Western region, and she's at the Milwaukee Art Museum. And finally, Mike Morawski is our Pacific region rep, and he's at the Portland Art Museum. And I've included all of their emails as well. And our rep-elects who will be serving for the next 2 years as elects, and then when Michelle takes over as the division director, they will move up into the regional rep positions, and we'll be looking for new rep-elects. So representing the Eastern Division is Jennifer DiPrizio, who is at the Portland Museum of Art. And when I was putting this presentation together, I realized that we cover both Portland Museum of Arts on each coast, which is kind of funny. In the Southeastern region, we have Christopher Lawing. He's at the Beckler Museum of Modern Art at Levine Center for the Arts. Western region is Melissa Tanner at the Art Institute of Chicago. She's been wonderful working on the pre-conference with Michelle in her role as the Western Region rep. And finally, Emily Jennings, who is at the Fine Arts Museum of San Francisco, and she is representing the Pacific region. And I just wanted to put this slide in here. It's a little difficult to see so that you could understand how the governance of NAEA works. You know, there really is a lot of voices at the table, and I want to be as transparent as possible. We've said all year that that's our theme for the year is transparency, so that you all understand how the Museum Education Division is represented. So the board is made up of the head of the board, the chair, and then we have a vice chair, and then we have a past chair. And then we have division directors for the elementary, middle level, secondary, higher ed, supervision and administration, museum education, and what's not on this chart, it needs to be updated, is also our pre-service division. So if you're a student in museum education, you could be a member of either our division or the pre-service division. It is completely up to you, and we do work very closely with each other. We also have vice presidents for different regions, so the Eastern, Pacific, Southeastern, and Western region, and that really makes up your board and who is representing you. So it's really a good idea to know who, not only who represents you on the division level, but also who represents you at the regional level, so that if you have questions about what's happening in the region, you can go to those people. And then you can see Delegates Assembly. Those are represent all 50 states, and they vote on things like our position papers. And then we have lots of issue groups. And in the board of directors, we have an executive committee, and I actually sit on the executive finance committee. So I'm at that level of being able to make some nice decisions and good decisions for the association. So next. And you've probably heard this or seen it if you're reading your NAEA news. NAEA really structures themselves in their strategic plan around 4 strategic goals. And I'm not going to read them to you. They are community, advocacy, learning, research, and knowledge. And that really structures all the work that we do. And if we want to go to the next slide, this is kind of where what we do falls into each of those. So in our learning, and you can see how they overlap with each other, because a lot of the things that we do are not just learning or community, they're also advocacy and research. So, you know, our pre-conference, our convention sessions, our peer-to-peer learning, our instructional resource gallery, that's both learning and community. Another place where it overlaps, you'll see social media, that's both community and advocacy. And as far as advocacy and research, that's really where our NAEA-AAMD research initiative comes in. And we're going to talk a little bit more about all of these things, but I just wanted you to see how the work that we're doing and the work that you're doing at your museums to help support NAEA really is falling within the strategic goals of the larger association. Next. And these are some things that we're going to talk about today, and in a second I'm going to let Michelle take over, because the annual NAEA convention and pre-conference is a huge amount of work, and the pre-conference, she is leading the charge on that. I was very happy to pass that along after doing it for 2 years when I was in the position of director-elect. We're also going to have Julene just speak very briefly about peer-to-peer hangouts, the social media committee, Viewfinder, the annual awards, position papers, and the NAEA-AAMD research study. So, Michelle, it's all you.
Okay, thank you. So once a year, NAEA offers a in-person convention that in the past has been 4 or 5 days, and it's been shortened to 3. So this year it's mid-March in Chicago, kicking off on St. Patrick's Day. And the day before the convention starts, we have a Museum Education Division pre-conference. This year happens to be the 30th pre-conference that we're hosting. It also, I learned for the first time that we are the only we're one of 7 divisions, and we're the only division to offer a specific pre-conference for our members, which is exciting. So,
and just to break in, I'll say that the other division directors we are having a few more pre-conferences this year based on the success of our pre-conference. So other divisions are doing it and have been impressed by the work that we've been doing for the last 30 years. So that's great.
Yeah. So if we go to the next slide. Thanks. So just really briefly, the theme for this year is Designing for Transparency. It's in the middle of the week on Wednesday, March 16th. It's basically 8:30 to 5:30, and we're meeting in 2 museums in Chicago, the Art Institute of Chicago, as well as the Museum of Contemporary Art, Chicago. Next slide. So I wanted to share just for a couple of minutes where the theme came from and how the theme gets decided. So, and I also think this also kind of addresses the, like, why should you care about the pre-conference for NAEA? So like I said, this is a unique opportunity for art museum educators to come together and share ideas and talk about what we're all grappling with. It could be a broader theme. It could be really nuanced, depending on, it kind of varies from year to year. Last year, we talked about quite a few different topics at the convention when we were in New Orleans, and one of the things that started to pop up that I was noticing, and then Emily and I addressed this in Chicago this summer when we met to plan the pre-conference, was that we often talk about we often use similar language as art museum educators as a field, but it might mean different things to each of us. So wanting to kind of pause and take it, not a step back, but just pause and really spend some time together and kind of puzzle through when we use some of these different terms or when we talk about certain things, what do those things mean? And also thinking a little bit about our roles within our institutions and how we exchange ideas. So the kind of 5 guiding questions that we were thinking about is, like I was saying, the language that we use to communicate what we do, getting us as a field pausing and taking a sense of how audiences feel about art museums and what they want from us in the future. Sometimes we're a little bit more open-minded to what the audiences might want, and sometimes we're less, but it's still important to understand what expectations or desires that audiences have. When we talk to our colleagues within our own institutions, whether they're in education or just as importantly outside of education, do they understand what we're doing within our work or why we approach the way that we do? And how, and this is something that as a division we've been addressing throughout the year, what are effective ways that we can share and reflect on different ideas or experiments, things that we're trying out as a field? What are some ways that we can capture that? And then thinking for yourself, what are your tools that you use for building transparency within your own work, or where are you drawing inspiration from? So those are kind of the overarching questions. So the day is structured a little differently than what we've done in the past. So we often start off with a panel or a keynote, and we're just going to jump right into doing and trying out lots of things together. So the day will start with a 2-hour design thinking workshop to help us think about communication and addressing that first point of language, and thinking about what we're doing, how we're going about doing it. Is it addressing our audience's needs? How do we know if it works? And so I have these 2 pictures here to just show you that a design thinking framework kind of has 5 steps to it, with empathizing, defining the problem that you want to address, ideate or coming up with different ways that you could do that, prototyping, so what is the actual program or thing that you're going to try, and then testing it out and kind of starting all over again. And it's going to be led by 2 professionals from Designing Insights. So the lead for that will be Dana Mitroff-Silvers, who's led a couple of these workshops for a few museums, including the Getty out in LA. And there's going to be lots and lots of Post-its to help us think kind of quick on our feet and organizing and categorizing things. So I have a couple of images here to show that. So that'll be, like I said, a 2-hour interactive workshop to kick off the day. Then there'll be, I'm just kind of highlighting bigger chunks. There's some other things that are happening, but I wanted to give everyone a sense of bigger pieces. So some time to wander the galleries, and then optional at lunchtime, museum educators love to share ideas and talk with one another and network. So if you're one of those people that wants to still share ideas and get some more creativity flowing, thinking about how to build transparency within ourselves as well as the field. So in the next few weeks, I'll be sending a follow-up registration form where you can indicate your preferences for lunch, as well as some of these other segments. And for this portion of the day, we're looking for ideas of what books or resources or ideas you draw inspiration from, whether it's neuroscience, or last year at Preconference, there was a lot of conversation about work-life balance. Where are you looking for inspiration, or what resources have you found to be helpful for there? It also could be that you make a suggestion of something that you're kind of struggling with. So let's say you're in a new position and you're trying to figure out management and how to go about, whether it's project management or being a manager of someone else. So what we're asking for is, what would you like to talk about? What are those topics? And then we will have round tables set up for lunch, so you can go and pop into as many as you want, I guess, or if you want to stay in one. And each table will have like a captain who kind of helps facilitate the conversation as well as take notes, and then we will gather all of those notes and data and put that into a resource that'll then be available on the NAEA Museum Education Division website for future reference. So it's really, what are your resources, what do you find useful, and then putting it somewhere where it not only can be shared with others who might not be able to join us for the day, but also could be a living document that we add to as well. And then next slide, great. And then we wanted to bring a gallery teaching component back into pre-conference. So sometimes we go really heavy on teaching, and sometimes we pause and kind of take a break from it. And there was a request to have gallery teaching in the actual museum. Last year we had a series of sessions during the conference, and we talked about teaching and gave some demonstrations, but we were in a windowless conference room, so we wanted to draw inspiration again from real works of art, and the Art Institute has an amazing collection where we can do that. So thinking about gallery teaching and putting this lens of transparency of how can you try out new ideas, or how can you deepen your skills as a practitioner. And we've been putting out calls for facilitators for this component of the day. We are looking for at least 20 different facilitators. I think we have about 25 proposals so far. We'd love to get more. I put the link to the Google Doc where we're asking for contributors for that, and I can add this to the Hangout page as well, but the deadline is Friday, this upcoming Friday, January 15th, so try something out or share something that you've already found to be really successful, looking for a variety of things, and the teaching itself is about 20 minutes and then about 30 minutes of group reflecting together in smaller groups. And then there will be plenty of time for looking in the galleries as well as networking at both sites of the Art Institute. So far through the day we'll be at the Art Institute, then there'll be a break where you can kind of recharge, go grab some coffee, go talk to a few folks, and then the next slide, just to talk about how the day will end. So then we kind of come back full circle about listening and really practicing active listening and empathizing skills by featuring a panel of 21st century museum visitors. And we've been working with a cohort of Chicago-based art museum educators to gather a range of visitors. So far we have a teenager who works at one of the museums. We have a young professional that's head of one of the museum's museum councils. We have a parent of a former teen that's been involved in one of the organizations, and then for kind of another lens or a person that can help us take this information from the visitors and think about how it relates to trends that are going on in museum education right now. We have Cecilia Garibay, who will be there to help us think about those connections together, and it'll be moderated by Ben Garcia, who is the COO of the Museum of Man in San Diego. So really, what can we kind of, now that we've thought about transparency and what it means within our own work, within our institutions, how can we connect that back to what the audiences are looking for from us? And then we wrap up the day with a quick informal how to make the most of NAEA 2016. We have a very active social media team that's been working for us throughout the year, and that features some of our leaders from that who will walk you through, you know, if you're new to NAEA, how can you make the most of your time in Chicago? What should you keep your eyes open for? Maybe what you could avoid. And then we wrap up with a reception in the Museum of Contemporary Art, Chicago. An optional facet that you have as an opportunity is to continue the conversation with dinners with colleagues at local restaurants. So don't stress about that yet, but we'll have sign-up sheets the day of. So if you connect with someone earlier in the day and you want to keep the conversation going, or you heard someone make a comment and you'd like to, you know, noodle through that a little bit more, you can sign up. The restaurants as well as the host for the evening will be listed, and can go off and learn even more from your museum education colleagues. So that's the pre-conference, and again, if you have any questions, we can take them as we go along. And then that leads into the 3-day NAEA annual convention. This year the theme is leadership, which coincidentally was the theme for last year's pre-conference. So Emily was thinking forward when she had that last year. Exactly. So next slide. So like I said, or Emily was explaining, there are 7 different divisions for the overall organization of NAEA. We are the Museum Education Division, and the leadership of NAEA kind of works to make sure that we address certain things that the membership has brought up over the past year. So there are certain things that we also do on an annual basis at NAEA. So some examples on the first day, which again is St. Patrick's Day in Chicago, so get ready for that, is conversation with colleagues. So each division has a business meeting where we get to talk about what's important to our division. So this is typically when we start talking about topics that are really resonating within our field. These different types of ideas really help us think about the agenda not only for a pre-conference next year, but the series of peer-to-peer hangouts. For example, last year we talked a lot about social media and its role in art museum education, and that led to us designing or developing a social media team. We have a couple other, like a publication pilot that we're trying this year that we'll talk about in a minute. So it's just a great way to help us think about how to make NAEA and what it offers most relevant to the membership. So we highly recommend that. We've had a great turnout, over 100 people the past 3 or 4 years, which is great. Oh, sorry, I'm almost done. And then later that day, the annual awards in the past have also been distributed division by division. This year, NAEA is trying something new where we're combining all of them into one big room. We're all going to gather, and all of the annual awards will be distributed. That happens. There's one overall national award winner for Museum Education Division, as well as one for each region. So stay tuned. Emily will be handing those out the end of the day on the first day.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I would strongly encourage everyone to, if you are able to attend that, it's a great way to honor those award winners and just see leaders in the field, and also to connect with people across the regions and across the different divisions, because you're working with school teachers every day, and getting to know some of those folks is a really great opportunity as well.
Great. So next slide. Thank you. And then what we've been trying to do over the past few years is come up with this, or last year we tried it for the first time, is come up with 3 back-to-back or consecutive sessions that really go deeper into one particular topic. So our division is currently working on a national study about field trips, and Emily's going to talk about that in a little bit. But given that we just are starting to embark on this study, which you can see here, we're talking about on Saturday, March 19th, we thought we would start to talk amongst the membership of what is the role of research in our work, or what is it not? And we wanted to think about it kind of 3 different ways. How do you get it started? How do you even go about approaching it? Then the second session, well, once you have the research or the data, how do you then use it? You can't just go on a shelf. You have to actually go do something with it. So we'll have some folks give examples of that. And then how do you, so kind of going back to that theme of transparency and making our work relevant and transparent to others within our institution, how do you make this part of what happens at your own museum, and talking about that museum-wide culture of learning. So those would be the 3 ways that we talk about that. Later that day, so as part of our peer-to-peer initiative, we want to connect peer-to-peers virtually or over the internet through these monthly hangouts. And then once we're all together, we love to hang out and exchange ideas in a more informal way at a happy hour. So that'll happen towards the end of the day, somewhere closer to the convention hotels.
Yeah, the Hilton Chicago, probably.
Yep. So we'll post that a little bit closer to the date. And then, like I said, the last day of the conference, we're going to highlight this national study that we've already started working on. So if you're curious to hear what's been going on with that and where we are with it, it's another way just to learn more about how Museum Education Division is approaching research right now.
Great.
Yeah.
And next, we're going to just talk about a few initiatives that the Museum Education Division has been working on over the last couple years. And you obviously know about peer-to-peer hangouts since you're on one currently. And I'm going to let Julene talk about that a little bit. And all I want to just say is the development committee does a lot of work behind the scenes, and they each kind of choose different aspects of our work that they want to kind of wrap their arms around and take on in their role as either region reps or rep-elects. And so Julene Chevalier, who was our Southeastern region rep and then went and moved to Minneapolis, so she couldn't be our rep anymore, but is now is still helping and working on the Hangouts along with Mari Robles, who is now the new Southeastern region rep. So I want to let her talk about it a little bit because, or the two of them talk about it a little bit because it is really something that they deal with on a daily basis. So Julene, do you want to go ahead?
Sure, thanks, Emily. Yeah, and so since I moved to Minneapolis from North Carolina, I have to comment on the weather this week. Today is the first day when we're getting out of single digits. Woohoo!
Not in Cincinnati.
It's a change. So yeah, peer-to-peer hangouts. I was very lucky to come into this process when a lot of the heavy lifting had been done, and the process of choosing Google Hangouts on air as a platform, etc. And the whole, Hangouts came to be, as you can read up here, because of how great our conversations are in person at conference, at pre-conference. We know how much we get out of just talking to each other and workshopping things. So Hangouts have gotten a little more formalized lately, but we still want to keep them very casual, as I'm sure they have that feel when we're a little bit, we're definitely less formal in these things than we would otherwise be. But it really is an opportunity to address issues that are of interest to you, the membership, the folks that are in the trenches every day. So we have a working group of about 15 to 20 folks who help us out, who volunteer to, who brainstorm ideas for these sessions, help volunteer to be the host or hostess, and pull together various speakers to present different viewpoints and aspects of a topic. So you can see our calendar for the year. Please also know that you can always go back and watch any of these. If you can't watch live, you can always watch the recordings, which you can access through our Google Plus page. They're all archived on YouTube, for better or for worse. So you can check those out there. So coming up, a topic that I am super interested in and passionate about is diversity in the museum education field as our February topic. Then we've got two topics back to back that may seem exactly the same, but are actually not. They're quite different. So March 9th is University Art Museums. Even if you don't work in a university art museum, which can be a little bit of a niche market or niche museum field, check it out, because there's lots of cool things happening in university art museums. They often tend to be smaller museums, so if you're a small to mid-sized museum, there's a lot to relate to there. And just really interesting opportunities for how to engage with college-age students and what's working and what's not. Yeah. So then thinking about in April, non-campus museums working with universities, that'll focus on anyway from connecting to faculty at universities or colleges that might be in your area to work on research. If you are a museum and you want to reach out to the college population, how do you get students and faculty just into the galleries? Do you want to have an advisory board? All sorts of different things that a non-university or non-campus museum can do to think about collaborating with or tapping into just the brain trust of universities. And then finally in May, we'll end the academic year with leadership in museum education, always a important topic and issue that we should all be thinking of. And I really do want to stress that we've got this organizational structure and we're here presenting it to you as in this vein of transparency, but it really is open to anybody to make a suggestion. Please seek out our emails, post onto the Google Plus page. Just let us know if you have an idea, a question, a query, anything. We really honestly do want to hear from you, and it really is the members and the participants that make these conversations rich and really help push us to be more experimental, because I think that's something we want to be, but I think we often fall back into our talking head PowerPoint comfort zone. And so if you've got an off-the-wall idea or just a really break in the usual format, we'd really love to hear it. So think of those ideas, send them our way, and push those boundaries.
Great. Thanks, Julene. Go to the next slide. And, you know, I just want to echo what Julene said is if you ever have any questions or need to make connections with someone, please reach out to either Michelle or myself. You know, we're definitely here to help you, and we enjoy talking to our colleagues as well and getting to know you. So if you ever have any questions, even if it's a small question, I had someone ask me the other day how long the Museum Education Division's been around. I can answer those questions too. So feel like you can, you know, ask whatever you need to know what's going on. And if it's about, you know, what's happening in other divisions, please direct those to me, because I can talk to the folks at NAEA to answer some of those questions. So even if it's a question that lives perhaps outside of museum education, I'm here to help with that as well, because I'm representing you and I want you to feel like you're getting the most out of your membership with NAEA. One of the things, as Michelle mentioned, we have a very active social media presence now, and we have a great team of, I would say, about 8 to 10 museum educators from across the country who are working really diligently on our social media plan. You know, as we've said, is we want to be as transparent as possible and really continue the conversation and be approachable. So in the last year, only in the last few months, I would say since September, we've started a Facebook group, which we encourage you to join, which is the NAEA Museum Education Division group. If you want to search for it on Facebook, once this goes on our website, these are all active links. So once you go into this document, you'll be able to get these links as well. And that's, you know, where you'll see posts from, you know, any member that is part of the group can post to that area, to our Facebook group. But you'll see mostly things from Michelle and I, also Heinel Epley, who's at the Cleveland Museum of Art. I should know that since she's in my state. And she's been really leading the force for the social media committee. We also have a Twitter presence, which is at NAEA Muse Ed, and that is 2 E's. And you know, look there for announcements of what's happening in the division, what's happening in NAEA, articles that we think will be interesting, conversations around different topics. You know, we're trying to post every single day, Monday through Friday, so there's always something new. So if you are active on Twitter, please do follow us. And I included some hashtags that we've been using. The hashtag we'll be using for the conference is NAEA Muse Ed 16, and people will be tweeting throughout the conference, but we encourage you that if you're going to the convention in Chicago to please use that hashtag so that we can retweet what you're tweeting. We can be part of your conversation as well. The hashtag we typically use for peer-to-peer is Museum Ed Peers, but we also use that on a lot of our tweets as well. And finally, we started a new one this year, which is I Am Museum Ed. We really want you to take pictures and tell us about what you're doing in your respective museums that is museum education, and we'll be highlighting those on Fridays. So please tweet I Am Museum Ed, and it could be anything from you teaching in the galleries, or you know, a funny picture of you cutting out, you know, some art project ad nauseum, and you know, that's part of Museum Ed as well. We also have a Google Plus page. That's pretty much where we have all of our peer-to-peer information, and all of our archived peer-to-peer presentations go to our YouTube page. If you're interested in submitting something to one of our social media platforms, we have a form you can fill out, and we do want you to submit that. So if you have something exciting going on at your museum that you want to share with your colleagues, or if you have read an article that you think that other museum educators would find really interesting, please fill out that form, and that's just so that we can make sure that things don't get missed. And it has proved to be really helpful. And finally, if you're not on social media, because we know not everyone is, but want to keep up to date with what's happening in the division, we still are really active on the Museum Education Division listserv, and would encourage you to sign up for that, because you'll get major announcements, updates, things going on, and that's, you know, probably the first place we'll post major updates, and then they'll get posted to our social media as well. So if you're going to do, we want you to do all of these things: join our Facebook group, follow us on Twitter, be our Google Plus friend, subscribe to our YouTube page. but also, you know, sign up for the listserv so you can really hear about what's happening in the division. So, and, you know, please ask any questions as we go along today, because we do really want to know if you have any questions, if it's not clear, or if you want to know more information about something. So please use that Q&A box so that we can answer your questions. So next, Michelle, do you want to tackle Viewfinder?
Sure. One of the last year at the awards presentation, the national award winner, Dana Klitschko-Carlisle, was mentioned in her remarks, and it was later posted as a blog on artmuseumteaching.com, that there was this conversation going back and forth via social media about what is the difference between different types of publishing and what's defined as publishing. So whether it's an academic journal that usually has a fairly long lead time, or you're writing it maybe a year and a half out before it gets published. Twitter and other social media platforms are very immediate, but also very short snippets, and then kind of in between with blogs and various ways of posting via social media. And the idea kind of was furthered throughout NAEA in 2015 in terms of how do we go about sharing ideas about what we're either ideas or things that we're working on, and how do we also start documenting what we do as a field? What is art museum education? What's happening today? How will future generations know what we're doing, and where's the best way to tackle some of those things? So a small group formed an initiative called Viewfinder, which is an interactive blog that uses medium.com's platform to share different ideas about art museum education. So right now that's being organized by Sarah Egan, who works here with me at the Gardner, Chelsea Kelly, who is based out of New York right now, and then Emily Jennings, who is in the Fine Arts Museums in San Francisco. And the three of them are working as the editors as well as organizers, and inviting different articles and different submissions that revolve around certain key topics. So the first one that we rolled out, the first issue this past fall, dealt with different ideas of leadership and what that means to us and in our work. The next issue will focus about transparency. So Emily said at the beginning, we're trying to connect a lot of these initiatives together. So the three different essays will talk about things such as critical thinking and how to make that more transparent, how to incorporate visitors' responses or ideas into exhibition installation and interpretation, as well as autoethnography and how art museum educators can apply self-reflection to transparency, both within themselves and their institution. So that will come out in the next few weeks, so stay tuned, because that could be another way to, we've been calling that version of Viewfinder the pre-conference reader, so ways that you can read about different types of initiatives that our membership is working on right now that relates to that central theme. Yeah.
So I'm looking at our time, and I want to be conscious that I want to give time if people still have questions. So the next couple things I'm going to go through kind of quickly. And the next item I wanted to talk about is the annual awards. And this is, as Michelle mentioned when she was talking about the convention, this is the first year that we're going to have a joint award program with the other divisions, which is really great. And we're really excited about that. But we need you as members of the association to nominate your peers for awards. And the nominations for 2017 are due October 1st, 2016. And I can answer lots of questions about the annual awards because, as I mentioned, each of the development committee members takes on something, takes on an initiative for the division. And when I was the Western Region rep-elect and then the rep, and so for 4 years I worked on the annual awards. And this is a really great opportunity to recognize colleagues in the field. The nomination packet is not difficult to do, if you know, and it's something that's a real joy to do because you're nominating a friend, a peer, a colleague to receive an award, and it really does mean so much. So I would strongly encourage. They're always due October 1st. I know it seems really crazy that in January I'm telling you to get your nominations in, but it is never too soon to start thinking about who you might want to nominate, and you know, so that we get some really wonderful nominees. for the awards. And those are, like I said, are given out every year at the convention. So the next slide, please. And I want to just talk about these two items really briefly. As I mentioned, I'm working at the, with the rest of the board on some things that are more association-wide, and that definitely do have to do with the Museum Education Division, but also that are serving the entire association. So two of those things are position papers and the Instructional Resource Gallery. And position statements are something that several committees work on throughout the year, and I actually worked on one. And it is a way, this is NAEA's stance or position on a certain topic, and I encourage you to look at the NAEA website to read those position statements. They get reviewed every 3 years, and they're a great resource if you need to go to your director or if you have a teacher that is trying to convince their principal of something. These position papers are, in essence, the stance the NAEA takes on something. And then the Instructional Resource Gallery. I actually have a conference call tonight at 8 o'clock in the evening to talk about this. So this is not 9 to 5. And this is really where we encourage teachers and museum educators to put resources out on the NAEA website. And these are lesson plans. So one of the things that I've really been talking to my fellow division directors about is that this is a place for museum educators to share lesson plans that they have written for teachers to use, but it's also a place for a museum educator to share a gallery activity or a gallery experience or a gallery teaching experience with another museum educator. So I would encourage museum educators to use the Instructional Resource Gallery in that aspect so that it's another place for us to share the work that we're doing in the field. And I will tell you that NAEA is working on getting a new website, and a little sneak peek, hopefully it's going to be ready in the next couple months. And there's going to be a brand new Instructional Resource Gallery that is even more user-friendly. So stay tuned, but that is definitely something that I would encourage our members to use. So next slide, please. And then the last big thing that I wanted to talk about is the NAEA-AAMD research study. As hopefully you're all aware, we did receive a wonderful national leadership grant from the Institute for Museum and Library Services to do a 3-year study on the impact of single visit field trips on students. And we're looking at investigating the question, what are the benefits of students of engaging with original works of art within the context of object-based art museum programs that take place during the formal school day? And these are really looking at those field trips that are, I don't want to say the one-shot deal, but they come in once and they have that one-time experience. We're working with Randy Corn and Associates, and we're in the first year of the 3-year research, and right now what we're doing is we're finalizing the literature review that we did during the planning year that was funded by the Cress Foundation, and now we are working on doing all of the IRB and getting all of our paperwork in hand and sorted, and we're working with a pilot museum for the first year to work through all the research materials and how we're going to do the research. And hopefully by next fall we'll be having 6 museums that we'll be working with nationwide that cover all of our regions, small museums, large museums, university museums, not encyclopedic museums. We're trying to be very diverse in the museums we're working with for the research study, and then we'll do a study for all of year 2, and then in year 3 it will be about writing up, creating that user guide that so that, as we were talking about, you know how to use this research in the work that you do on a daily basis. This has been a huge project for us. It's been a lot of work, but a lot of really interesting work, and I'm really excited to see where we go with this. So if you ever have any questions about the research study, please reach out to me, because that I feel like I'm a little bit eating, drinking, breathing, sleeping this at the moment. So that's, we want to be there to help you. And Michelle is also on the team working on this, so she can answer questions as well. So next, please. And finally, Michelle and I are obviously on the development committee, but we want you to get more involved with the division. So if you're interested in getting more involved, we have a form that's on the Art Museum or on the Museum Education website for NAEA that you can fill out, and you can get involved in lots of different ways. You can say, I want to work on a one-time project, which means you might help be on a writing team for a position paper. You can say, I'm really interested in social media, so we might ask you to be on the social media committee. So you can tell us how much you want to be involved. If you want to help with the pre-conference, you know, that's a great way to get involved as well. And so we need people for kind of different lengths of service. If you don't want to jump in with both feet and be on the development committee and want to just see what it's like working within the division, you know, there's lots of things that, you know, you could be doing. So we do really encourage you to fill out the form and let us know how you would like to be interested, how you would like to be involved, and reach out. Okay. And finally, questions. We encourage, if you have questions, to please ask them. If we finish with this hangout and you still have questions, those are our email addresses. We also have an email address for the division, which is naeamused@gmail.com, that you can always ask questions at as well. So if anyone has any questions, we would love to hear them. Hello? Maybe we covered things so well that there are no questions.
You mentioned earlier that you were asked recently how long the division has been in existence. I was just curious what the answer to that is.
It was, I emailed our trustee Kathy Deuce at NAEA, who knows everything, and she's always so wonderfully helpful. September 1, 1981 was the day that the division was officially incorporated. So, and I can say that our division is one of the smaller divisions, but we are a mighty division. So I think that at last count, our membership was around 500. So I think that, you know, we have a lot of really dedicated folks, and we have a lot of people that are new to the field that are also getting excited about being in the division. Great.
I think also just, go ahead, Julian.
Oh, no.
I was just going to say that there are still slots available for the pre-conference. So if you're interested, there have been a few questions. So if you sign up for annual convention, it's an additional workshop that you add to your registration. So if you've already registered for convention, but you didn't for pre-conference, you feel free to email me, and I can tell you there are certain ways that you can go about doing that. We also set up registration deliberately so that you register for both convention and pre-conference instead of just pre-conference. But if pre-conference is all you can do, there's a specific way to sign up for that as well, and I can help you walk you through that as well.
And we do have a question from Melissa Tanner. How can museums, museum educators within a region connect with one another?
Well, there are two really great ways to do that. I would encourage you to reach out to your state association. So, you know, in Ohio, it's OAEA, Ohio Art Education Association, to see if there's a museum education division within your state division, if that makes sense. If there's not a real active one, then I would encourage you to reach out via the social media outlets that we have, you know, and say, you know, hey, I'm in Chicago and would love to reach out to somebody that's in another part of Illinois to connect with what's going on. You know, that's a great way to do it. And then you just kind of build that friendship. But I would definitely encourage going first to the state association to see if there's any, if people are involved there, because that's where they can help you. As far as the region, you know, also go to the region vice VP for that, and that all that information is located on the NAEA website, and say, you know, how can I get more involved at the regional level as well.
I'll also add that going to your state level, as a museum person, your state probably doesn't have a very large museum ed presence. So that's a really great opportunity for you take on a leadership position.
Right.
And it's a really great opportunity to really get to know, especially if you're working with school and teacher programs, get to know teachers in your state. I was president of the North Carolina Art Education Association before I left. And that was just a really great experience because it's rare for a museum person to be the president of a state organization, but it's just such a great opportunity to get in and get to know what's going on in art classrooms in public and private schools across your state or Commonwealth.
And and I would also say museum educators are not terribly shy individuals. So if you are interested in what's going on in another part of your state, call them up and ask them and talk to them or send them an email. And the vast majority of us museum educators love getting those calls because we like talking to other people in the field who get it. So I would say be brave and just reach out to that person if they're doing something that you find really interesting and make that connection.
The other plug I wanted to give is a lot of folks that work in museum technology have a series of programs called it's #DrinkingAboutMuseums, where they get together. Yep. And the museum tech field is really open with sharing ideas, epic failures, epic successes, and that I have personally found really great in terms of networking. And even if it's something that they're talking about that might be slightly outside my wheelhouse or my responsibilities, I often connect with other educators, and it's also just great to learn something new. So it doesn't just have to be about education. And I was going to say, no, it's okay. And also, I've personally found regional conferences like we have New England Museum Association, which is really helpful, which isn't just art museum education, but it's just great to connect with other museum educators locally.
And I was just going to reiterate that I'm on the board for the Association of Midwest Museums, and it's a great way to get out of our zone a little bit. I mean, when we're museum educators, we're thinking about museum education, but it's also important to meet, the marketing folks out there, the registration folks out there that are working in other museums, because you can get inspired anywhere.
Absolutely. I was just going to give another plug, like Michelle said, for the tech folks. I recently kind of discovered Museum Computer Network, MCN, and I wouldn't have gone to that conference if it wasn't in my town, but it was great, and there's a huge amount of overlap between interpretation and MCN, so I wholeheartedly recommend that to anyone who's interested.
Yeah, I would say the other one would be Visitor. I think it's called the Visitor Services Association, because there's so much overlap there as well.
Well, it looks like we are out of time. Thank you so much, Emily and Michelle, for being our fearless leaders. We know, for those of you who don't know, I'm just going to fill everybody in on how much work it is to do these things, to plan pre-conference, to go to all of these board meetings, which are fascinating but also tedious. That it's really a huge commitment on both of your parts, and I thank you for the entire membership, and just want to share with the membership how much time and energy you do put into this, and you don't get paid, so thank you.
But we're very happy to do it. At least I can say I'm very happy to do it.
It's a lot of fun. Yeah. It really is.
So I will give a plug for everybody to tune in again next month at this time, February 10th, to talk about diversity. Super, super duper important and timely issue that the museum education field and most museums are just desperately behind the curve. So have a great day. Hope it's warmer where you are than where I am, and we'll see you next month. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.